as I'm sketching here, whatever is kind of retreating from the light, I'll know to have a thicker holding line. And now that I'm moving into the leg, gotta really remember to keep this in frame. You know what? What if I do that now? Oh, the cleverness of me. Look at that. Problem solved. And you thought that my chatting here was just random blathering, and look what I just figured out. Attitude. So I'm not going to put any heavy blacks on anything that's on this side of the drawing. I'm going to be putting heavy blacks on everything that is on the underside of the drawing. Cast some shadow. Light or darkness retreats from the light. What the hell is that? Is that a gunshot? I doubt it. And there's a getaway car. Wow. Guess if I read in the news tomorrow that something bad happened, I'll have some evidence for the, hey, I happened to be recording at the time. I lived in some bad neighborhoods in Montreal, man. Whatever I could afford, because the booze takes priority. That's where all the money goes. So things like living arrangements, all that was secondary. Booze came first. Tragic. Thankfully I don't live in that negative headspace anymore. I was getting there. You might have thought to yourself, wow, this is getting depressing, but imagine living in that negative headspace. Well, when I first got sober, I remember thinking to myself, oh God, all these wasted years, where would I be if I hadn't wasted like 15 years of my life? Where would I be? I don't think like that anymore. Yeah, it's true that if I wasn't drinking and I just threw myself into comics my entire life, hell, maybe I would be the artist on Conan myself at this point in my career. Or maybe not. Who knows? We can't live like that. We can't live looking to the past. Gotta live looking to the future, right? So this YouTube account gives me an opportunity to try something new, try something different, and I'm having fun. I'm living like a 20-year-old, and seeing as how A, I'm sober, and B, I'm back at the gym, I'm probably one of the only guys on the planet that's actually has the Benjamin Button syndrome. I'm actually getting younger and healthier. My brain cells have regenerated, new, young, healthy cells. I noticed a glaring error that I'm now going to fix. So as I was talking about tangent lines, I'm going to point out probably the worst one I've ever done. If we follow the underside of this arm, this tricep and the top of Spidey's eye lens is the same line. Look at that. That's horrible. So we're going to fix that right now. This is why every pencil has an eraser and every inker has a whiteout stick. Alright, let's continue spotting our black. Now I'm not worried about going really dark in this area so much, because that's where the big spider is going to be. Which is going to be in white. So the light's going to be hitting the top of everything here. So here, because it's sort of near the bottom of the foot, I spotted black, whereas here, not so much. Here, this muscle is going to cast a shadow, so if it looks like I'm just randomly laying in big black patterns, I'm consciously aware of where the light is as I lay in all of these big pools of black here. And in fact, this area would be a lot darker because it is kind of retreating from the light. So let's thicken up these lines. Okay, same thing here. Leaving it white because the light would be hitting it. And this whole area here, let's really darken the entire thing in. And this should hopefully push Venom back and push Spidey forward. And yeah, it seems to have worked. Again, the abs I'm not going to be spotting in heavy blacks because that is where Venom's Spidey decal is going to be, which is white. And now that the whiteout is dry, let's have this tricep muscle come down much more. And our problem with the tangent line has now been resolved. Got a bit of whiteout on here, and my marker, clean it off. Man, I don't know if I'm going to make the gym tomorrow morning. It's now 1 o'clock in the morning. My gym reservation is at 8:15. Spotting blacks, spotting blacks, spotting blacks. So again, wherever the light is really going to hit, there's going to be, you know, like the light as it's coming down from here hits the top of the shoulder muscle, that's white. On the underside of it is black. Will come and hit this bicep, that's white. The underside of it is black with a halo for refracted light. If I'm thinking of a sphere and the light source is coming down, say this way, is this in frame? Yes, it is. The shading, the pooled black, is not going to go to the very edge of the sphere here. It's going to leave a white because, first of all, the sphere curves back. We've got to think of everything in terms of three-dimensionality, and because light bounces off and comes back, and that is what we know as refracted light. And a sphere, needless to say, is a circle, a three-dimensional circle. and so is everything in nature. So, being as how anatomy is a creation of nature, it follows the same rule. Everything is a sphere, and some of the spheres have been stepped on and are now ovals. Some have been pulled like taffy and are now strange shapes that you'll see everywhere in here, but they're still spheres. And if you can shade a sphere and you understand the principle of refracted light, and you understand how the shadow runs from the light, then spotting blacks is a fast, not thoroughly difficult process. See again, these pectoral muscles are just spheres, and notice how I shaded the sphere. I'm shading the pectoral muscle. Big pooled areas of black in here where the darkness gets trapped. Well, I would probably at this moment be listening to what am I in the mood for? Susie and the Banshees. I'll be listening to some Susie and the Banshees right now. But YouTube laws, I don't want to pay royalties to Susie Sue. So you just have to hear me blather on inanely. Shadows under the collarbone. I'm always thinking of cast shadow versus refracted light, and this can be seen here. This sphere casts a shadow and it has refracted light, and that's all I'm doing. Cast shadow underneath everything that overlaps is going to cast a shadow. So there's not much shadow here, just a little tiny spotted blacks because the light kind of hits that palm. However, in this one, we're going to have a lot of shadow. Because, why? Because it is on the underside of our light source. And still keeping the refracted light, this is still just spheres. I've always said that if you're drawing anatomy, anything in nature, so landscapes, that kind of thing, if you know how to shade a sphere like I just did, then you know how to shade anything. Okay, so see the difference between all the shadow in that hand and the sort of lesser amount of shadow in that hand. I want to get into the spider decal here soon because I'm looking at this area in the chest and in the abs, and it just doesn't look right because there's so much white in here and so much dark everywhere else. But I know that that's because the big spider decal is going to be there, so I'm kind of itching to get that drawn just because it doesn't look right. Oh, hey, that's what whiteout's for, right? Gotta thin the lines where the white is and yet leave them thick in the areas where there is no white. So this has to come down here. So while the whiteout's drying, no sense mucking with it. Let me go and take, let's look for 0.1. Here's a 0.1. Now normally the smart thing to do when I'm drawing the webbing on Spidey's costume would be to do it in pencil first, and then trace over the pencil with marker, but I'm not going to do that. And my thumb, or my finger, is picking up whiteout as I rest it on the paper. What to do, what to do? Create a makeshift maul stick with a paintbrush. And now my hand is resting on the brush and not on wet whiteout, which is going to smudge. You know what, this 01 is a little thin. What is the solution, one might ask? Move to an 02. Do I have an 02? What are you? An 02. Look at that. Seems like it's the same thickness. Okay, we'll go to my 05 and just press a little lighter. Yeah, that'll work. And I don't need the maul stick anymore. Useful little painting trick when one is working in oils or watercolor or really wet medium, that you know, an illustrator always rests their palm on the image as they're sketching. Well, if that area is wet, it smears the paint, but a maul stick, as you've just seen me use a paintbrush, will correct that problem. Maul stick is generally just an aluminum stick with a little rubber stopper on the end. You can buy them in art stores. But me being poor, I know how to just make them out of a stick of dowel and some tape, or just to use whatever's lying around. If you followed any of these videos, you'll know that I'm an absolute wizard when it comes to getting art supplies for practically nothing. However, yeah, you know, here, let me go off on a bit of a tangent here. I will tell you that there are certain corners that you don't want to cut. So, if you are going to Dollarama, I would recommend getting your canvas there is fine, getting palettes, watercolor palettes. I buy at Dollarama all the time. But in terms of paint, I use the super expensive Winsor Newton Artist Quality, and in terms of brushes, again, I get them at an art store. And sketchbooks, this is the biggest thing. I see so many people buying sketchbooks at Dollarama. And I get it, because like a good sketchbook will cost you 20 bucks, whereas you get the same, allegedly, the same thing Who's messaging me? Allegedly the same thing at Dollarama for about, well, $1 stands to reason, right? I'm telling you, don't fall for that trap. I wouldn't lie to you. I will tell you every way to save money that I can think of. Do not get sketchbooks at the dollar store. They are crap. They are yellow, and you know, the pencil just digs right into the fibers and tears it. And you know, when I try to erase on a Dollarama sketchbook, the paper just kind of gets destroyed. It's certainly not acid free. You know, spring for, I'll tell you what you can get at Dollarama to save some money, but if you're going to get a sketchbook, go save some money, get a good one. It's worth it. Ditto with paint. Cheap hog hair brushes, get them at Dollarama. That's what I do. I have like the cheapest brushes, and for just slopping down paint. But then I also have the really expensive Winsor Newton Series 7 Sable, which is about $100 a brush, that I use for doing all my nice blending and stuff. So, you know, it's a trade-off. Can't get everything for free in life, unfortunately. Alright, once again, I should have this in pencil first, and then trace over the pencil, but I'm not going to do that. The entire point behind these videos is not only just how to go fast, but how to bring something to completion. So many people out there will start a drawing and just never finish it. Like, oh, it's not quite right, maybe I'll get it next time, and then they just leave it unfinished. And guess what? It's never going to be quite right. As I'm looking at this, there's tons of things I don't like about it. But I'm going to finish it and then apply what I've learned to the next one. I think the worst thing one can do is sort of compare yourself to other people out there. You know, you're you, and if I was going to compare myself to like a Neil Adams or a John Buscema or something like that, I wouldn't want to pick up my pencil in the morning. But imagine if the whole world operated like that. Wow. Imagine if Neil deGrasse Tyson woke up in the morning and, you know, said, I'm never going to be the next Einstein or the next Isaac Newton. We would all lose something, right? Imagine if the mechanic down the street who went to school and where you go to get your car fixed, imagine if he or she said, oh, I'm never going to be the next Gerald Ford. And they gave up. Where would you go to get your car fixed? I think the whole idea is that we all add to what's come before us. And every once in a while, history gives us genius. But for the rest of us, we can't let that slow us down. Have to play the best cards that we have. And for some of us, if our career as comic book artists and magicians don't pay off, there's always a motivational speaker's racket. I do like to speak. I speak quite a bit as an addict. I address a lot of mental health conventions where I talk about my struggles with addiction. I volunteer every place that will have me. Really, really great program that I can't really talk about all that much. The rebound program through which is offered in different schools through CAS. It's in the States, it's in Canada. Tremendous, tremendous program where people like myself, volunteers, we go into the schools, we talk to kids about different strategies, how to deal with bullies, how to deal with peer pressure. Myself as a recovered alcoholic, I talk about the dangers of drugs and alcohol. There you go, there's the spider.